Good morning, everyone. This is the Tech Club here on the RBN Network. It is, of course, June now, June 2nd, 2013. I am your host, Jaison. Our other host, co-host, I should say, Mish, is actually on holiday this weekend, or vacation, depends on where you are. He's on holiday, so I will be handling your show for the next hour. I think I can handle it here. Again, my name is Jaison. Our website here at Stone Mountain Consultants is smc.io. And on that page, you'll see all of our links to our social media sites. But on this week's show, we've got, of course, our usual tech news highlights. And then our topic for this week is going to be passwords and security. This topic we actually haven't talked about in a number of weeks. And, of course, how it affects your privacy. A couple items that are rather newsworthy is headset zaps video gamers' brains for better reflexes. Focus, FOC.US, is a company that is making a better headset for gamers. And for all you geeks or nerds out there, I should say, there's a Star Trek Next Generation show that actually portrayed this device years ago, just like it is explained in the news article. Basically what it does is it's a headset, kind of like Google Glasses, that fits over your head, and as you play the game, it zaps a certain area of the brain that basically gives you pleasure, that excites that prefrontal cortex. It's only $249. The story behind the Next Generation show was that it, while it was pleasurable, but it was addictive, and there was actually alternative, the alien race that had devised it for the humans actually had devised it so they could take over the humans. So it's just kind of interesting how, that show probably came out in, the 90s? So 15 or so years later, we have a device that's just like it. Microsoft is, for all you folks who do buy computers, we know Windows 8 is out there. I personally don't necessarily like it. They're adding back in the Start button in Windows 8.1. The Start button was removed in Windows 8, much to the they upset quite a few people. Windows 8 is really for a tablet. It was designed for a tablet, touch screen. Folks who have a desktop or even a laptop that does not have a touch screen, it's not that user-friendly, and that's what Microsoft is finding. Windows 8 was definitely a change for Microsoft, a gamble for Microsoft. They had to do something. There's our break. When we come back, I've got a couple other items, and then we'll go over our topic. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Tech Club, June 2nd. I'm your host, Jaison. As I had mentioned, Mish is on vacation this week. He'll be back next Sunday. But before the break, one of the articles I was mentioning was about how Microsoft had taken a gamble with Windows 8, which is their latest operating system for computers and tablets. It was designed for tablets from the ground up, as they say in programming language. They started from scratch and had tablets in mind. When I say a tablet, it's like an iPad, but with a touch interface. Icons are bigger. For everything, instead of you clicking on, it's designed for, just like the iPad, for you to touch instead of type. Microsoft and even Apple, in a way, sort of, once they develop something and it becomes standard like Windows, it's hard to break from that standard, and sometimes you have to. And that's why Microsoft took such a gamble with this operating system. For example, it was, with the various version of Windows, it was Windows 3.1, 95, 98, let's see what else, Millennium, NT, Windows 2000, XP, Vista, 7, and then 8. I think I did that right. With each version of, or with each new version of Windows, they had to make it backward compatible with the previous version because they didn't want to break anything. Old programs, old architecture, mean older hardware. So that kind of became the weak point in the new version of Windows, whatever it was, because it had to be backward compatible with the old one. Well, with Windows 7 actually, and especially with 8, they started to, the disadvantage to that is being backward compatible with an older version that, like I said, it becomes its weak point, its weak link. It's less stable. It can crash because they're trying to always improve. But with Windows 7 and 8, they decided to really start disregarding the old architecture, the old programs, and really move forward to cut that link. And that's why 7 and even 8 is relatively bug-free. Of course, there's always updates, as we always say, do your Windows updates. Even though I mentioned earlier before the break I didn't like Windows 8, I will admit I've had it on since before it became available. It's called a beta version. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's ever blue screened on me. So it is a lot more stable, I should say. Now that's different with Apple, because what Apple does is they will do that. Their latest operating system, OS 10, whatever, 0.4, 0.5, will actually, Apple folks will say this, they have to buy a new computer, because the new version of the operating system will not run on the older version. So if they want the new version, all the bells and whistles, they have to get a new computer. So Apple does it a little differently. There are pros and cons to each one. So I just kind of wanted to go over that. These companies are sort of in a not necessarily a bind, but they have to please both the not the older crowd, but the older architectural crowd and move ahead in advancement of technology. Just want to mention this, another somewhat different change. Apple is rumored to go back to what we call flat looking operating system for their phones and iPads and iPods. Steve Jobs had always wanted to kind of have that 3D-ish look, so for folks who do have that iPhone or iPad, they notice it sort of has a 3D-ish look to it. Now that he's gone, somebody else has taken over the development of iOS, and he likes the flat look. And there'll be a picture of it on our website. You'll see what it looks. It looks fine. It's just it is a major difference. It looks completely different. It's flat. This is supposed to be out probably by the end of this year. So that's interesting. No. Anyhow, on our website there is, which is smc.io, there is a page called Shows that you can click on, and then click on the respective show, for example today, and you will see the news articles that I've referenced and anything else that I've referenced on this show. So everything is out there if you want to take a look at it yourself. But our topic is security and passwords. One thing I'll talk about passwords is, of course, we all know passwords, and that's obviously one of the biggest complaints around is there's so many passwords you have to remember, and because of that, people will use the same password for everything or make a minor variation of it. that or will write down the password on a sticky note or on a pad and keep it in a list. I've seen customers open up a little black book and instead of girls' phone numbers, they'll have passwords for websites. The problem with this is, of course, is once you make passwords all the same or make it readily available for anybody else to see, that is, of course, a weak link in that. You do need to make your passwords relatively secure. There is a website out there, which will be on our show notes, actually two of them, howsecureismypassword.net. That's howsecureismypassword.net. And there's another one called Password Meter, passwordmeter.com. And again, it'll be on the show notes for later today. Then you can actually enter a password in and it'll tell you how secure it is. Most folks will actually, and I'm guilty of this too, will put in a simple word, or as we call a dictionary word, and then maybe put a number after it. The problem with that is, it's just that it's a dictionary word. It can easily be hacked into. It's called a dictionary hack. And a dictionary hack is, a program will go against a database, for example, a website's database, and then pick a username and then use a dictionary tag against it, and it'll just go through all the words in the dictionary. Simple as that. Dictionary tag can be happened with computer power nowadays. Anybody could do it. They could hack your password in, I think, it's a matter of seconds. Even adding a number to it, like the year you were born, doesn't really do anything because for our computer it just runs down the years. So if your password is Sunday, for example, Sunday 1954, well, that's relatively easy to hack. It's extremely easy to hack actually for a computer. So this goes through these algorithms. So a couple tips for passwords, and I think we've mentioned these before, but it's good to go over them again, is one, you can use a passphrase. Most websites, Windows, Apple, your phone, will allow you to use passphrases. What a passphrase is could be something like, Sundays are the best day of the week for me. A lot of letters, but easy to type, easy to remember, but extremely difficult to hack. A passphrase like that. Even the space bar, it makes the how secure that password is go up by a number of notches. Or adding a special character. Some people will put mixture of letters and numbers, and that's great, and that's actually probably one of the better ones to do it. A common one would be, password P ampersand 88S0RD, something like that. Mix the numbers with the letters, and that can be done. But again, as more and more folks do that, easier to hack into. So you gotta think about that. So I like passphrases, easy to remember, hard to crack. Another disadvantage is, there's two ways that a password can get hacked into. Your individual username or ID for a particular website can get hacked into, or the database, typically that the website server runs on, can get hacked into. The latter you can't really control, obviously. That's the security on the server itself, the people who maintain that. But that's the hardest one of them all usually, because what happens is if your password, not just your password, it could be tens of thousands of other people's passwords, if they get hacked into or copied out, that's obviously what typically these hackers will do. They'll go in, hack into a server, grab a copy of the database, pull it out, and they have it. They have all your passwords, your usernames typically. Now if you think about it, a lot of websites will use your email address for a username. If the hacker has your password, he obviously has your username, but your email address is basically all over the internet. I mean, you can do a Google search on it and you'll see. Especially the more you use the internet, you'll see your email address out there. For example, what does Facebook use to create the credential set? Excuse me, the credential set for Facebook is your username, which is your email address, and of course a password. So if someone has your email address and they know a password that you typically use, they know how to get into Facebook. That's why you may want to use a different password for each website, which we'll go over when we come back after the break. Stay tuned. Welcome back here in the Tech Club. Again, I am still Jaison, your host. This is a short break, or a short segment, I should say, before another break, but I'm going to continue on the passwords because it obviously is somewhat important, and most folks, and again, I'm guilty of it too, get, no pun intended, weak when it comes to passwords because, again, there are so many out there. In addition to the passphrase that I recommend, if a website doesn't use that or doesn't allow you to use the passphrase, some will say, between 5 and 8 characters, and that is actually a good point. When a website says, your web password can only be between 4 and 8, say for example, that should be your first clue that website is not that secure, because it's not using a higher form of authentication when that password is created. So you may want to second guess yourself when creating a login, or especially if you're buying something. If it does not allow you to create a password longer than 8 characters, then again, their password algorithm for encryption isn't that great and can be easily hacked. So you want to, that's something to keep an eye on. But again, you can use different passwords for different sites. What I will use is I'll use a more common, not common, but a common for me password for, what do we want to call them? Standard or run-of-the-mill passwords. Standard or run-of-the-mill websites. Something I really don't care about if they get hacked into. Like I was playing a game on my iPhone last night. I was asking me to create a username. Well, first off, I used a email address that I don't typically use because I don't care about this, and a password that it's one of my common passwords. If they get hacked into, I don't care. But my banking sites, Facebook or Twitter and stuff like that, those are more secure, of course, and I want to care about those a little more. Let's see, what else for passwords? I guess that's, you definitely want to try to use a passphrase. If you're the only one who lives at home, and use the computer, then you probably don't need a password protected. That's fine. If you've got more than one folks in the house, you can certainly password protect them. Passwords for Windows can be easily hacked into. We do it all the time. People will change their password, we'll forget it, and then we'll have to crack it, that type of thing. So that can be done. Your wireless, your internet, your wireless Wi-Fi should be secured, unless you live out in nowhere's land, sort of like us. Your Wi-Fi router will transmit up to 200 to 300 feet, depending on the layout of the land. For example, if it's a flat area with snow, it'll go further because the signals will bounce off the snow. For example, we have a pond in front of our house. In front of the pond, it bounces off the water and could go a little further. But if you've got trees, especially pine needle trees, pine needles are the worst for any transmission. They just absorb those wavelengths, and it's like a brick wall to them. But if you live in an apartment complex or side by side to houses, you want to secure your wireless. With these new routers, that's relatively easy to do. In fact, some of them even have just a button you click and it encrypts it. Or when you set them up for the first time, they'll walk you through that. But they should be secured, because not necessarily, you may say, well, as far as your Wi-Fi is concerned, well, why would they want to get on your internet? I mean, who cares? It's just the internet. Problem is the downloading illegal content, movies or songs, music, software, has heavy fines to it, and they can be tracked down. So instead of this person using their own internet to download, say, the latest movie, say the latest Star Trek movie, they're going to hop onto somebody else's network, internet, and download it. And guess who's responsible? You'll never find that person. It's you. You'll get the notice from your internet provider saying on this day that this file was downloaded. Basically, it's a slap on the hand, and then after the I think it's a third or fourth offense, your internet is cut. You can't get internet, and then you're banned from that. So they can use your internet for illegal activity. So you want to protect against that. And like I said, you'll never know who that is, because by the time you find out that happened, it's long gone. The routers log files, if they're turned on, doesn't usually store that information that long, and that information's just not recorded. So, and they know that. These people know that. That's why they'll hit one Wi-Fi for a couple hours. Once they get what they want, they'll go into somebody else's. So you want to protect it. Another form of weak passwords. Now, the reason why you don't want weak passwords, again, same thought argument here. Why would somebody want to hack into your account or hack into your computer? You have nothing. You just use the computer for internet and email. Well, there's our break. When we get back, I'll go over again why they want your computer. Stay tuned. And welcome back, and good morning to everyone. This is the Tech Club here on the RBN network. Today is June 2nd. We're on the second half of our show. I am Jaison. Our normal co-host Mish is on vacation this week, so it is just me, or I, for today's show. We're talking about passwords and security. We are the Stone Mountain Consultants. Our website is smc.io. It's just shortened for Stone Mountain Consultants.io. We obviously are consultants when it comes to technology, anything technology, computers, tablets, wireless networks, websites, email hosting, all that good stuff. I should mention that this week, actually, we are attending and sponsoring and providing the equipment for the 2013 Virginia Homeschool Convention in Richmond, Virginia. An estimated 16,000 or over 16,000 folks are expected to be there. It's the largest homeschooling convention in the country. We will have a booth there. I'm trying to remember the booth number. I think it's 61, maybe 161. I cannot remember at the moment, but we will be there as their vendor. So if you're walking by, you can stop and say hi. We will be providing the equipment for registration purposes at the convention. The convention starts Thursday, lasts until Saturday. So hopefully we'll see you there. And we were, of course, I was, along with Mish and the rest of the kids, were homeschooled, I should say. And my kids are actually being currently homeschooled. I think it's definitely the way to go. And as I was saying before the break, why would somebody want to hack into your computer? Well, you know, we hear that quite often, Mish and I. We'll say, people say, oh, I have nothing on my computer. I just use the computer for email, to, talk to my grandkids, or, check up the news in the morning. Well, they being the hackers, bad guys, whatever you want to call them, they don't care about you. They want your computer. Because nowadays what it is they can control your computer, or have access to your computer. They can use that computer's processing power to infect other computers, servers, send out the email, etc. And, on a good day, or even a bad day, I should say, somebody who writes a virus can infect a couple 100,000 computers. And what they can do is, there is a black market for all this. If they have 200,000 computers that they've infected, those 200,000 computers or people don't know that their computer is infected. See, nowadays the bad guys don't want you to know your computer is infected, because what that bad guy can do now is he can sell time on those computers to other bad guys who are, what do we want to say, lazy and don't want to create a virus. So they can say, oh, I have 200,000 computers at my control. Maybe you can rent them for whatever, 10 cents per hour per computer or something like that. So that's money to be made. And that's what it is with viruses nowadays. There is money involved. People will say, well, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? It's all money. Whether it's your credit card that they'll steal, or your financial data they'll steal, but you could use your computer to steal somebody else's credit card information. So it's the computer that they want. So that's why you need to secure your computer as well. Secure your Wi-Fi. Use hard to crack passwords. We had gone over that with passphrases as an example. Be careful of the websites you do visit, and you hear that quite often. Be careful of the questions that you answer. This is common enough that we need to mention it, that especially on Facebook. Facebook isn't necessarily bad. It's just that because they have over 850 million users, of course, what are the bad guys going to hone in on? Or, that's going to obviously get their attention. But anyhow, we've seen where people will play a game on Facebook, and in the game will ask them questions such as, what's your favorite pet's name? And then maybe a few minutes later in the game, it'll ask you, what's your mother's maiden name? And you're playing the game, you're not thinking anything of it. But one thing you're going to realize is those are the security questions that a lot of websites will ask. And you probably are familiar with those. You're signing on to your bank will say, we need to set up some security questions. One of the questions may be, what is your mother's maiden name? So that game you were playing wasn't really a true game for your entertainment. It was designed to grab that personal information from you, which then can be used to answer those security questions for the bad guys. So be careful of the information that you give out on the internet. And speaking of those security questions, don't use common answers. Don't even use common questions. A lot of new websites are now allowing you to create your own question, which is nice because you can create your own weird question. But if that website doesn't allow you to create your own question, if they still use the common, what is your mother's maiden name, put 24 in. Well, obviously I don't want 24 now since I said that, but put 24 in. Well, that doesn't make sense. So if for some reason somebody got that information that your mother's name was Smith, Well, if they try to put Smith in that question answer, they'll never get through. But you, of course, need to remember you had put 24. So that's what I do. The answers to those security questions on my part aren't the right answers. Why should they be? Because if someone has the right answer, which that information can be gotten, as I just mentioned, they know the answers to that. So that's another important aspect of securing things and locking it down. As far as other security, as far as your computer is concerned, you do need an antivirus program that still, secures your computer. There's something else called a firewall. Those are usually in your wireless router or just a router. Those you should use because just like and that's where the name comes from, the firewall, stops a fire in the wall. A computer-based firewall usually stops hackers getting into your network. When you get internet, whether it's from Usenet or your cable provider or phone company, your account has what we call a public IP address. Think of it as your phone number. Every account or every computer on the internet needs a IP address. Well, if your computer is hooked up to the public internet, as we would call it, without a firewall, that computer is standing out in the middle of a highway, easily accessible to anybody who wants access to that computer, because as we have talked about in the past, your operating system, Windows or even Apple, has security flaws in it, and these bad guys know it. I remember I had set up a router a couple years ago. This router would notify me of any attempt to hack into it. I just wanted to see how often or if that would ever happen. Well, I was probably getting a notification every hour that there was an attempt to hack into it. So that's how common it is. These bad guys will take a range of IPs, and if they know of a security flaw in Microsoft Windows 7, for example, and how to breach it, they'll scan hundreds of thousands of computers on a network, because that's what the internet is, for that flaw. And when they come across one, bang, you're infected. If you don't have Windows 7, well, it just bypasses you, or if you have a firewall, it just bypasses you, and that's what I was seeing. So you want a firewall router. All routers have a firewall built into them. Linksys, which was bought by Cisco, Netgear, SMC, D-Link, Belkin, they all have firewalls built into them. So if you don't have one, you should go out and get one, because what firewall will do is it takes that public IP address and then will hide your computers or your devices behind that firewall. Your computer, your iPhone, your TV, and all those devices behind that firewall. So it blocks any of those attempts to get into that network. The firewall is set to ignore what we call unsolicited requests. If a request comes into the firewall that was not initiated from inside your network, it ignores it. You of course want it to ignore it, because if it's set to say, hey, we don't want you, you're not wanted here, well then that bad guy knows that there's something there. So if it's set to go into a black hole sorts, they don't know if there's something there or not. So you want to get a firewall, definitely. They're not expensive. $50, $60. A higher end one will cost you around $100. Now you can, and even if you don't have internet on all the computers, you can after this. You can share printers. So there's some advantages to having a firewall on your network. And that's what it is. It is a network, even if you have one computer. A couple other security things to keep in mind is your data. say your phone or iPad or let's just say tablet and smartphone. If you are a user of these devices, they all have the ability to track them. Apple calls it Find My iPhone, even though it works with iPads and iPods. Android, you have to excuse me, I don't know what it's called, but Android phones and tablets do have that ability, and also Windows phones have that ability too. And basically what it'll do is it keeps track of your phone. You do have the option to wipe the unit. When I say wipe the unit, that means, I don't want to call it bricking it, but wipes all the data from it. So let's say you forget your iPad or your iPhone on the plane, and you're afraid there's some personal information on there and you don't want to get in the wrong hands or any hands other than yours. Log on to the site, choose your phone, choose wipe data. And of course, if your unit is backed up, when you do get it back, you can restore. But as soon as that person picks up the phone, if it's been wiped, there's nothing on it. It's just like if they bought it from a store. You can also send out notifications to the phone that makes a high-pitched noise. You can say, if you find me, call blah, 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 call this number. So those are handy. There's been quite a few people who have left their tablets or phones somewhere. They logged on, and there it is. And this can pinpoint it down to the house that it's at. So that's easy to use and set up and free in all the cases. If you get rid of a computer or a phone or a tablet, you want to wipe it. Or have a computer buddy of yours wipe the hard drive. And when I say wipe the hard drive, I'm not just talking deleting files, because those files can be gotten again. When a file is deleted, it's not really deleted, it's marked for deletion until the next program needs space to store data. And even then, that data can be retrieved. We've retrieved previously deleted data from 3 months ago. What you need to do is you need to wipe the data according to DoD specs, Department of Defense specs. I believe it's 11 times, which basically means there's a program out there that you can buy or free, that rewrites onto that sector zeros and ones 11 times, and after that, even the FBI can't get to it. And so that's with your computer. And then maybe put Windows back on and give it to a friend or donate it. Your phones or tablets, wipe that data. They all have options to restore back to factory settings. And I'll actually share a story with you why that's important. Even for me, we all make mistakes. Years ago, I had a phone that was overheating. Returned the phone, got a new phone, and maybe about a month later, I was on my computer, and I had noticed my email in my inbox being deleted. And I restored those emails, and in a few minutes later, those emails were gone again. And the way they were being deleted, I could tell it wasn't a system deletion, it was a human deleting these. So I did it again, and they were deleted again. And then I finally, it was like someone was in my account. I sent myself an email. Says, I can't remember what I said, who has my email or something like that. And I actually got a response back that says, none of your business. So I knew someone was in my account. So I went in and changed my email, my password, and that stopped that. But what I had realized after this, what had happened was the phone that I had sent back, I never factory reset, and neither did AT&T. So when that phone was sold again, when that person opened up the phone, turned on the phone, I should say, there was my phone, my email, all my apps and stuff like that. And that's what he was doing. He was just deleting them. And that's something to keep in mind. When you get rid of these devices, remove your data. And again, all of them have a factory restore option, whether it's under settings or whatever. So you want to remove that data, because people will dumpster dive for this stuff, and just to get data. It's even been in the news. Hospitals even have just thrown away computer equipment, and people have gone in and looked at hard drives, and there's your personal data, medical data. Even things like copiers nowadays, the not even higher end copiers have hard drives in them that store every copied file on it. There's our break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. And welcome back here in the Tech Club. This is our last segment for the day, for the show, for the day, for the week. I'm Jaison. Mish is on vacation here. Just to wrap up on today's show, we were talking about, and still are talking about, security and passwords. You do want to secure your devices because it's just not the data that the bad guys want. They also want to use the hardware, the power of those devices to infect other computers, send spam out, what we call a denial of service attack, or a DDoS. We're all actually familiar with DDoS attacks, just not familiar with how it's done. A DDoS attack attacks a certain website and brings it basically down, and that's when these websites do not become accessible. So what happens is, of course, when you go out to CNN.com, your computer makes a request out to CNN.com, and CNN.com's web server displays the web page. Fair enough. And that web server probably can handle, and I'm just throwing this number out here, don't know if it's correct, tens of thousands of requests at a time, which is fine, especially on a news-breaking day. But if you've got, going back to my analogy of a hacker who has infected 200,000 computers, if he has set in his code that on June 2nd at 12 noon to send a request out to CNN.com, and that's it, just a request out to CNN.com, what's those 200,000 computers going to do at 12 noon Eastern Time on June 2nd? They're going to go out and request CNN.com's webpage. Well, if that web server is only designed to handle a few tens of thousands of requests, 200,000 come in at the same time, it basically just keels over and does not become available. It's a simple attack. It's a simple attack that works, brings on a website, really doesn't do much damage to it, but it does bring it down. It's an easy way to, it can be multiple websites. It just doesn't have to be CNN. It could be multiple websites at the same time. So again, they can use your computer power to do all this. More so with computers, not as common with your smartphones and your tablets just yet, because to get that virus on the phone or the tablet even, it's just a little more difficult for the bad guys to do. It's there's basically a return on investment. These guys are business folks. If they have to spend an extra amount of time to write their virus for the iPhone, for example, they don't get as much return on it as if they wrote it for Windows. So why spend all that extra effort on something that's not going to really give them much in return? As the phones, for example, become more popular, we're going to start seeing it. That's exactly what's happened with Apple. People have always said, oh, Apple doesn't get viruses. Well, the main reason they didn't get viruses was because the return on investment for these, again, bad guys wasn't that great. I could write a virus for Windows and infect millions of people, but only infect a few people on Apple. Anyhow, there's our show for the week. Have a good week. We'll see you next week. Take care.